Hey everyone, it's Lauren again, and we're going to have some fun with some texture and some mixed media. So I pulled out all these chipboard frames that we got in the main kit. Pretty sure it was the main kit. Anyway, the April Kitaholic Kits, I get all of them, so check out their website if you want to purchase any of them or know any of the other products that are in here. So I started with these two little photos of my son, and I decided that I was going to use the chipboard frames, but I needed to change the colour. I didn't want them brown. So I'm just using the paint. You could use white gesso or any type of acrylic paint. This paint came in the mixed media kit this month, so it was just handy to use. Now the reason I'm using the paint is so that the colour stands out vibrantly on top of that white rather than it soaking into the chipboard. So we got these Lindy Gangs powders, and I've just put some on my table there, and I'm just adding water. Now I do recommend using a plastic packaging or an art mat or something rather than your own table. It does get very messy. It does wipe off. I just use baby wipes and wiped it off. But if you probably a lot of people are probably horrified at the mess I'm making. Anyway, so I'm just painting over top of the white. I am getting the sides. I did get the sides, like the inside and outside edges of the frames, not just the top, so that it didn't look brown on the layout at all. So I do just a few coats because sometimes the colour is soaking in. They're pretty much, the white paint is dried, but not 100%. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know mixed media drying is not my forte. I do not like to wait for it to dry, and I don't like to get out my heat gun all that often. Although I did this time, I've got them out and I did blow dry or heat dry them on both sides. And I'm just going to have a play now with how I'm going to position the chipboard frames. Now I envisioned I was going to use that frame, and then I thought, oh no, that's not going to work. And I'm just having a play to work out where I'm going to go. Now those Lindy Gangs powders, they have like a really cool property to them. They have that bluey green look to them. Even when you mix them, it keeps the colour, and it just makes it actually more vibrant and come out a bit more. So it's so nice that it's not just a solid one colour shade. It's actually a few shades to it, and obviously the more water you add, or if you add it to white paint or modelling paste, it changes up that colour as well. So I think this is my first time ever using them, and I had quite a big play before I got onto this project. I used them by adding the water to them, and I've also added it to the white paint, but I also then just sprinkled some on my paper and used a baby wipe to smush it, move the colour across, and it gave us this lovely streak of colour, which was two-tone colours and all sorts of goodness. So hopefully I'll, maybe my third project might be that. So I'm getting towards where I want to have my chipboard frames, and then I decided I wanted just a bold photo, just one photo. I didn't want two photos. It was going to be too segmented. I didn't want to have those photos above each other, parallel kind of framed like that. I wanted those photos, whichever layout they turn onto, I wanted them, randomly placed diagonally kind of next to each other, if you know what I mean. Anyway, so I thought this would be a nice title, and I picked that out early. I don't know why. I just looked at the those puffy stickers and thought, oh, I wonder if there's a nice one on there that's blue. And then I seen this black one, and I thought that would sit nestled into the frames like that really nicely. So I've pulled it out to remind myself, and I'm just going through the 6x8 papers. Found these butterflies and thought that I could use some of the blue butterflies. Now, it's at this point where I've decided that I want a blue with just a couple of pops of black layout. So I'm just trying to keep that in mind as I'm pulling out papers and ephemera. So I'm just going to go through a few bits and pieces, and I just keep it in just so you can see the process a little of, shuffling through some things. It didn't take too long. It's just a matter of, sometimes I find this works for me when I'm working with a kit, especially at the beginning, first layouts, because there's so much that we get in the kits each month. It's sometimes very hard to get, it's very easy to get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff we get, so it's nice to pull out just a little portion of what I want to work with, in particular to that design and that colour tone. So I found this lovely little jug of flowers, and I just think it's so lovely it's not overly girlish or anything like that. And the colours are just perfect. So pulling out some labels from the cut apart sheets. And you can see it's so easy just to see them all in one little quick glance rather than pulling through a whole pile of die cuts. So I'm going to get last couple of pieces of pattern paper. Then I go into my stash. I wanted something more textural to go with it. So I've pulled out this little clump of gauze and this blue teal kind of tulle it is. So one time just went to the sewing shop and then the fabric shop and they had half price on everything, all their fabric. So I grabbed some tulle and some cheesecloth in mind of scrapbooking. So just going to work on my layering. I needed a bold layer behind the photo, otherwise I needed a white layer. I decided this bold blue one was what needed to happen, and I wanted to put that frame in there. I like the look of the frame just popped in the corner like that. It looks really nice on an angle like that. Now I'm going to just have a play with cutting them out and working my way through each layer to make it look like it all goes together. Now the fun part of using a little gauze is that you can rip it apart and pull it, and all the threads move differently and it just sits differently every time you position it on a layout. Now that gauze I just got from a kit, one of the kits I had to, rebandage my son's sore or something. It was a few years ago. Anyway, it came with like 6 of these little sections of gauze and we needed only 1 or 2 each time. So I kept the others, and I think pretty sure that's my last one, which means I might have to visit the chemist or when we used to get our first aid kits checked at work, they would take out anything that had a use by, and everything has a use by date on, even in a first aid kit, band-aids and everything. They would take it out and they would either throw it, in some places will donate it to third world countries, but I would always be using the gauze, not only for the children to play with in the home corner environment, but also for my art. So anyway, so having a play with just some more layering pieces, I wondered whether that speech bubble could sit in there. We have a little pop of that blue foil off the edge, but it wasn't the right place for it. So just having a play now, making it sit on my page to see if it looks like there's enough layering going on and that it pops off the page and has its own focal point to it. So I'm going to nestle that in there. It's funny how they all just nestle in and sit so nicely. It's like it's meant to be. So just fussy cutting these little labels out to see if I want to add them. And spoiler alert, I do add them. Just as some layers down the sides. And you can see it's just so easy to cut labels out. I just add a little bit of a white border to the edge. That way you can't notice if you cut wonky, because you're not cutting into the shape of the item that you're cutting. So that's a little tip for fussy cutting. And then I found this one when I just glanced over to my box of goodies and decided that could go on the left somewhere when I find a good spot for it. That way it's just nice to have a bit more of the tones and patterns going on in the layering. It's a bit more, the more you look at it, the more you see kind of situation with those photo layers. Now I'm just going to have a play with fussy cutting these butterflies. Now originally I thought I would just use these ones and have a little amount of butterflies on there and sort of have it as a little, pop of interest. But when I remembered we have the full 12 by 12 piece with the butterflies on it as well. So I just cut a few, not very many. I didn't want all of them. I didn't want butterfly heavy page. So just keeping to the blue tones, and it was nice that there was the darker and the lighter tone in the blue and the butterflies. So it could tie in really well with all the other goodness going on. So you can see here I fussy cut some and added it, and just showing you how easy it is to fussy cut the last one and add that one and call it a day with the butterflies. And you can see how wonky everything is. I haven't glued it down yet. Sometimes I glue as I go, and other times like this where I'm a bit unsure as to where I'm going, I glue parts of it and then go back, and you can see like I did my layers And now I'm going to go back, I'm going to glue all this down. I don't make you watch me gluing it all down, but first I do get my mixed media on again. So adding some of the Lindy Gangs powder straight to this spray bottle of water. Now the bottle isn't full, it's probably about a third to a half full, and then I just added a pile of powder to get the colour I wanted. Now I'm just using it to put some ink splatters on, and then I get out a pipette. So you could use an eyedropper or a pipette. I just get them from the $2 shop or the cheap dollar shop. I did get some eyedroppers early on back in the day from a chemist, and it just depends on what you're looking for. The pipette holds a lot of colour and therefore can shoot out a lot of colour quicker than an eyedropper. So depending on what you're looking for, I know a lot of the inks come with those little eyedroppers, but pipettes that you get like 7 or 8 in a packet for like $2, $1.50 or something. So they're just a nice little, and they're quite easy to wash out. You just, suction up the water and then squeeze it out in your paint water bottle, water cup. So just pulling off some of the colour with the paper towel so that it's not taking forever to dry. And then I'm just going to position these back on and then glue it all together. So I didn't make you watch me glue it down because I did a diorama project with my son and we used all of my fancy lovely glue, and I'm so annoyed because I don't have any of the good glue left because we were running out of time and we just had to do it quickly and didn't think about it and just was like, yep, get it done. And then I was like, oh, that was my Helmer's glue and that was my Tombow glue and it's all gone now. Anyway, and so the glue that I had left, the nozzle's blocked and I had to use my little die tool to pull out the glue like a little spatula. Crazy. Anyway, I pulled out some thread, some light blue and some dark blue. Now the embroidery thread I just pulled apart so that it was strand by strand just as thick as the light blue cotton. And that's just... it's good to use a mixture, I think, because sometimes the embroidery thread you want the thickness, other times you only want 1 or 2 strands at a time. So it's nice, and there's lots of different colours, and sometimes they're on sale at different times. So the embroidery thread might be on sale, whereas other times the sewing cotton's on sale. A lot of my cotton is left over from, I used to sew a lot before I got back into scrapbooking, so that is where that came from. Anyway, I'm going to build on the page and work out what I'm going to do for embellishments, adding on this ticket, position it where I wanted it so you could read the good stuff, and then I ultimately cover it up, of course. So you can see here, I'm just using my die tool to pull out some glue. I really was liking how it was going. I was so annoyed that I didn't have any glue and it's, nearly midnight. But it's okay. I got the layout done in the end. And lucky you, I got to cut out all the time it took me to put the glue onto the back of the frames using this little die tool. Oh, it's frustrating. Anyway, enough about that. Whinging and moaning. Geez, Lauren. So I'm going to glue on my butterflies now, and then I'm just going to work on those little sprinkles and those finishing touches to the page. I really liked how it came together, how the chipboard frames in the back were a little focal point, but not like in your face focal where you can only see that. It just draws your eye to the big cluster. And I didn't sometimes when I make a big cluster to the side like this, I'll often put a little cluster to the right in this case, but I didn't feel it needed it at all. I really wanted to keep it tight in this cluster. It's pretty much taking up the whole page anyway, but I just wanted to keep it that way. Other times you just look at it, and I feel that's when you feel if something's missing or you're needing something and it's too blank over that side or whatever's going on. But this one certainly didn't need that. I think the ink splatters helped a lot with that as well. So I'm just going to put this die cut down here, just because that looks nice and covers up a little bit of the thread, ties it in as well without it looking like, oh, she's just placed that there because she's got thread down the bottom. Now I bring back my title. It's still on plastic and I'm still thinking that's where it's going to go. And I then pull out these flowers, which is also another reason why I wanted to go with the blue tones. Not only because I wanted to challenge myself to make a boy heavy layout using the Cocoa Vanilla Happiness collection, which is very girly and pretty and lovely. I love it. But these flowers that we got in the kit, the tones were just so nice. I thought they would go really well together on a heavy textural page. So this is what my ultimate goal was when I began, was to have some texture going on and use up these chipboard frames. So I'm just cutting down the stems, pushing them down to the side so that they don't unravel, but they also don't stick into the page. And just gluing them straight down. Some wet glue, it's easy to get it on there. Just push it down. Make sure it's adhered, like that it's sticking to your page. So I put them in the 3 spots. I end up putting up here with this My Happiness. Down there, the bottom cluster at the bottom left of the photo, and then at the top left of the photo as well, where those butterflies are. Have a little play. I wondered whether it would look like the flowers were in the vase, but that's not the look we were going for. Just looked a bit tacky, I guess. So I'm just going to put some up here. I do make a cluster of 3, so 2 paper flowers that we got here, and then I pull out a third one, which is a resin one, out of my stash. So often I don't pull things out of my stash, really, when I'm using the kit. I like to show you guys how I use everything in the kit to make layouts, rather than making you feel like if you buy the kit then you have to buy something else if you don't have it in your stash. But I felt it needed those little pops of texture in terms of the gauze, the tulle and the resin flower. But tissue paper would work the same, or anything that you had, or just don't use the same. Like, you don't have to do exactly the same, even if you're scrap lifting. You make it work for yourself. So I know I love texture a lot, so that's something I often strive. Well, it's not that I strive for it, just naturally happens on my layouts. But that's to say that you guys might like the design of the layout, but want it to be more flat and more less textural and wild. Each to their own. I think the beauty of scrapbooking is that once you work out your style, it's so easy to get a layout done, and to, even when you're scrap lifting, to work out how things work in your mind. So you might look at a layout and go, oh, that's really lovely. If I was doing that, I might do this or that differently, or and whatnot. And that's fine, because it's still lovely what you see, and that person's put in a great effort and made a great layout. But if you are scrap lifting, you can make it your own and give them credit, but make it your own, so that we can have all the creativity juices flowing between us in this networking world that we have in social media. So, adding some sequins, something I don't often do, but I should really do it more often. I've just got some light blue and some dark blue just from my stash. And I just love the pop of interest that it gives with those little light pockets of sprinkles. And then I decided that actually that black was standing out as the only thing black on the page. So I wondered if I could pull in one of these blue titles, and I certainly do. And I just nestle it in there, so that changes the look, so it keeps it more condensed as well. So if I kept that Love You layer title, it would have still looked good, but it was making the cluster bigger than it needed to be. I think putting this sweet here makes it just in that area of the layout rather than being spread out everywhere, which is what it needed to happen for this design, I feel. So just using double-sided tape really badly. I really should have used thinner double-sided tape rather than pushing around in and out and whatnot, but we got there in the end. And then I wanted to use the little blue stickers that we got, the alpha stickers, and I decided to put a title on. I'm pretty sure that's what I do next. Yes, here we go. And that just brings in a different texture to the title, but also another pop of the blue as well. So I'm going to write baby boy on there, because at first I was like, oh, there's only 2 B's, I can't write baby. No, I was going to write sweet boy, and then I was like, oh, I should write baby boy. And I was like, oh, there's only 2 bees. I need 3. And then I found the third one down the bottom with the extras. And I was like, no worries, excellent. So fiddle with them to get in those little pieces that are in between the, the sections of the bee that don't need to be there. Fiddled, and then was like, why don't you just use your die tool? That's what it's for, poking out those little negative pieces. So I get the letters eventually onto the paper, and then I realise that I only had one Y left. I've obviously used the other Y, and you watch me stare. Now this is sped up. And I'm like, no, there has to be a Y. It's there, I'm just not looking properly. It's got to be in the extras, and look, I've got to look and look and look and look and look and look and look. And then I was like, oh, maybe I could use one from the other colour. Maybe I could cover it with the blue pen or blue paint. And then I'm like, I don't even have a blue paint pen. I'm like, ugh. And then I just realised that I could just spell little. So I've spelled out the title, Sweet Little Boy. And then I'm just going to add those finishing touches. Try those Brad kind of things and decide, no, I try this flare, but then go and change it to a darker flare. That light flare was sticking out too much in terms of the page. Put it here and quickly decide to move it. There's too much already going on in that cluster. It didn't need a big bulky flare at all. So that's another tip for you if you're finding that you're not too sure of how it's looking. Hold your page up so that you can see it more head on and see if you like it more that way. So I'm just going to nestle that up there, and then I'm just going to I found those little resin stars that we got in the collection, which I love so much. They were the tealy bluey colour, and they've got all these little speckles in the resin, and it just looks so lovely. So I pop on 2 of them just to have it tie in with the page, and then I work on some enamel dots. I was so happy when I found those stars, because I was like, oh, they're the perfect addition, they're the perfect colour tone, and they just sparkle and look so nice without being overbearing. So add in some enamel dots to each of the little sections. And then I decided it needed a doodly border, but I didn't want a doodly border, I wanted to ink the edges. And I was like, I don't want to put black, so let me see if I can use the ink that I made up. So give it a shake, and I just go to use the nozzle, and it just, 1, wasn't really putting on the colour in a way that I liked, and 2, it was going to take forever. So then I decide that surely a baby wipe will do the job. So get out a baby wipe, and I pour a bit of the colour on, and I'm surprised at how well it smushed the colour onto the page. These Lindy Gangs powders are, the pigment is so bright and so strong, and you don't need much at all to go a long way. So you can see there I'm just doing on the edges, but also then on the front edges as well. Add some more sprinkles just to make sure I've got them all in the right places that you can see. And that's our layout. So here's some close-ups. You can see all the texture and the 3D goodness going on. And hopefully you've stayed to the end and enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time. Sorry, I thought it cut out, so I just paused. But anyway, I'll catch you next week for the other project. Bye.